Welcome back. Now that we've covered how to handle warm calls that don't successfully get the prospect on the phone, let's talk about how to handle those that do. A few notes to calibrate our mindset first. Sales is a numbers game. 90% of these calls may go nowhere, but the more we make, the more opportunities we'll generate. Practice makes perfect. Consider recording your calls, if that's legal where you and the prospect are, so that you can analyze them later. There's no script for the Connect call, but there is a framework. So make it customized and personal. We'll give you the basics, and you can make them work for you. You can help everyone, even if they have no budget, no desire, and no real need. You can continue to offer suggestions for platforms, tactics, and referrals. Okay, so let's examine the Connect call. It's called that because that's the standard preached by the fine folks at HubSpot, and because it really is intended to serve solely as a quick connect, typically no more than 15 minutes, to develop a bit of rapport and make an initial determination of need and potential. While you should learn enough to make an initial determination of fit, this is not an opportunity to run the prospect through a formal qualification process. If you're already thinking back to your BANT training, budget, authority, need, and timeline, you should put that out of your head. Gathering those details is a service to yourself, not to the prospect, and it'll turn them off at a critical point in the nurturing process. The components of a great Connect call, as outlined by David Winehouse, include research. You need to know the basics before picking up the phone. Greeting. The way you start the conversation will set the tone and the likelihood of a successful call. As with everything, the best approach is going to be simple. Give to get. One of David's many gems, this means we provide value before requesting value. Positioning statements. Remember those from the blueprint? Well, this is where you're going to put them to work. Active listening. Your ability to provide a strong solution requires strong comprehension of the details provided by the prospect. Identify pains. Sort through the information to uncover pains that you can alleviate. Restating what you heard and what you covered. Next steps. Determine if there's a real sales opportunity. Follow-up email. You want to recap the call and reiterate the next steps. So let's work through each of these individually. It's critical that you preface each call with at least a few minutes of research into your prospect and their business. First, review their LinkedIn profile. From the photo to the interests, you can often learn plenty from that page alone. Second, be sure to review your message history with the connection. If you had any custom replies, you'll want to take those into consideration during your call, because there's nothing worse than asking questions they've already answered. Third, click through to their company LinkedIn profile and learn the basics so that you don't waste time asking such questions during the call. Office locations, how many offices, how many employees, how much revenue, areas of expertise, and the like. These are all things you can learn on your own. Asking the prospect these things just makes your outreach seem more templated and makes you look like you didn't do your homework. Next, get ready for your call by calibrating your physiology. It may sound corny, but the energy you portray on a call can be impacted significantly by standing for your calls, moving around, smiling, and otherwise acting as though the prospect's in the room with you. If it helps, picture yourself as your business idol, standing with your hands on your hips, placing your 100,000th sales call with 100% confidence. And remember, you're not calling to sell, you're calling to help. You have value, and you're interested in sharing it to alleviate your prospect's pain or problem. Now let's talk about your call greeting when you get a prospect to answer the phone through your 4-call sequence. You'll skip this part if your Connect call was scheduled ahead of time, such as when a prospect uses your calendar booking link in an email. Dan Tyer's approach is simple and effective. Hi Rob, this is Phil with Distill. Pause, pause, pause. What we're doing here is greeting the prospect like we'd greet a friend, and by pausing and waiting for a response, you're giving them a few seconds to think about how they must surely know who you are. We haven't jumped into a pitch or asked questions yet, like how are you today, how would you like to save thousands on your mortgage this year? Those are things that cold callers do. If the prospect seems less than happy to hear from you, throw out Dan's favorite reaction. Ugh, doesn't sound like you were expecting my call. Now you don't have to use ugh, but you do want to use something that conflicts with expectations. Maybe that's poop, no, crap, shoot, or snap. As long as it interrupts their initial reaction by being unexpected and apologetic, it will frequently light up any tension. In any case, you should punt on pleasantries and instead promptly move into the point of your call. Well, Rob, I was about to add to our message history on LinkedIn and decided it would make more sense to just connect by phone. If your warm call sequence was initiated because the prospect indicated an immediate need for your services, you should reference that conversation instead. I was hoping to connect briefly on our LinkedIn discussion from Wednesday about your RFP. Do you have a few minutes now, or would it be better to put something on the calendar? Now, whether you continue immediately or pick the conversation back up later, you should have enough political capital from your greeting and your LinkedIn nurturing to ease in with a bit of small talk. This is also your likely starting point if your Connect call wasn't impromptu but instead scheduled in advance, so everyone was already expecting to speak. I trust that I caught you at work and not in the middle of a fun family vacation. Did you have to take the rowboat to work today with all this flooding? Any chance you get to work from home today to avoid the parade traffic? Are you in the Boston office this morning? I honestly wasn't sure if I'd catch you since it's so early there. Are you always at work by 7:30 a.m.? Be yourself, but be brief. Now, let's talk about David Winehouse's give and get approach. The give and get is based on the fact that you can give something of value and ask for something of value in return. When you establish a bit of trust by giving a chunk of value, it encourages a friendlier and more open conversation. The majority of our LinkedIn sequence sets a foundation of giving. We can transition from pleasantries to the give and get with something like, "Bob, I was poking around your website before reaching out. I love your company logo, by the way. And I have a quick thought if you'd be interested. You have a couple of minutes right now?" We're always careful about using the words suggestion or recommendation in these instances, as they can come across as a critique, and that often elicits a defensive response or stance from the prospect. If they indicate interest, which they surely will, you can then provide your give and get. Here's an example of a give and get from a web marketing company. The give. I see that your website's page titles aren't using relevant keywords. Not sure if you know this, but including keywords in page titles is easy and can help your site rank better by telling the search engines what your pages are about. And then for the get, have you done any formal SEO work in the past? How did it go? Was the lead quality good? Or how about an example from a recruiting firm? Here's our give. I noticed that you're not posting the job openings from your site on LinkedIn. Over 65% of our candidates say that it's the main place to look for new career opportunities. And then the gets. Have you tried posting your jobs on LinkedIn before? Are your openings posted online by an internal employee or through a partner? How many applications do you typically get? Are you happy with the candidate quality? A common mistake people make when offering a give is being too verbose. Give a short and meaningful tip, see if it resonates, and then follow up with relevant questions that get more detail from the prospect. Now that we have a little more insight into our prospect, let's pull out those positioning statements and use them to get even more information that uncovers pains. Maybe the prospect will ask you what you do, but you can be proactive too. Well, Bob, we work with boutique firms in Dallas who are over-reliant on referrals for new clients, but know they need a formal sales program to help them grow and prepare for the next economic downturn. Do you ever feel like that? Or, we also help small firms that have been investing in tactics like SEO and pay-per-click advertising, but haven't been impressed with the volume or quality of leads those investments have produced. Have you guys experienced any of those challenges? And then, well, we also do quite a bit of work with business development managers at mid-sized firms who are seeing diminishing returns on traditional marketing tactics and need new ideas to accelerate revenue growth. Are you trying to grow your firm this year? Notice that we've added our validation questions to the end of these. We're not probing for simple yes or no responses, but instead getting more detail. It's not even critical that we get a response in the affirmative, just that we get them talking. Whatever the response, we can then encourage them to go into greater depth through active listening. A few active listening lines that we can use to get more detail could include, "Why? Tell me more about that." So what I hear you saying is, "Let me get this right. That is very interesting. What else? Why do you do it that way? Wow, how'd you figure that out? Really? How long have you been doing that? Nice." The key is to ask a question and then shut up for as long as possible. My good friend Jacob Carlson suggests muting the phone after asking your question so that you're not tempted to interject with affirmations or tidbits. The objective here is to get the prospect talking enough that you can leverage your active listening skills to pull out their specific priorities, challenges, and pain points. It can be easy to make assumptions or to paraphrase feedback inside your head. That's usually a mistake. Instead, restate key points and ask for confirmation or clarification. If you leave the call with the wrong understanding, you'll likely provide solutions that don't resonate later. Again, it's important to keep this call to no more than 15 minutes. Any longer than that, and you'll be encroaching on the structure and value of the upcoming opportunity sequence, not to mention potentially wearing your prospect out too early in the process. A question that pops up frequently relates to pricing. Unless you have published pricing that's cut and dry, you may not be ready to discuss your fees at this stage of the process. But as soon as you start talking about your business focus, you're bound to get inquiries. As you'll learn in the next lesson, there are good reasons to punt on that topic, regardless of how comfortable you are in addressing it. So what if a prospect asks? Refusing to answer at all is an outdated sales tactic, so you should avoid it. Answering fully, though, risks having your prospect focus on the wrong information at the wrong time. So we try to meet in the middle. Our engagements are typically between $2,000 and $18,000 per month, depending on the scope of services. We'd need to schedule additional time to dig into your specific challenges, goals, and timelines to get a good feel for what would be reasonable in your case. Once that happens, I can provide a firm investment. Is that okay? David Winehouse suggests going a step further by converting this scenario into a give and get that gathers a bit of market research in exchange for the pricing info you just provided. By the way, is that range significantly different from what you expected me to say? There's another common scenario that piggybacks off the early pricing inquiry. How many times have you had a prospect lead an initial conversation by requesting a quote? In our agency business, I can't even remember the number of times a sales call started with, "Yeah, our website needs a redesign and SEO. Can you send me a proposal?" On the surface, these can seem like easy wins, but for most businesses, jumping straight to a proposal, as requested, results in a much lower close rate. David uses the term taking the cheese to reference the act of following one of these prospects' shortened timelines, whether it means coming up with pricing on the spot, generating an email and a proposal without real research, or jumping into talking about tactics too early. Don't take the cheese, it won't keep you fed. Once you've gotten enough information to determine whether or not there's potential to offer value, but before the 15-minute mark, you can close out the conversation and either chalk it up to a nice discussion for those prospects who lack potential, or for those who seem promising, you can propose scheduling a more substantial call to dig deeper into suggestions and opportunities. This script will vary based on your business, but is often something along the lines of this. "Jim, what I'm hearing you say is that you currently have some pain around your hiring process and you could benefit from a better source of quality candidates. I have the option of scheduling 30 to 45 minutes in the next few days for you and I to dig into your current approach so that I can offer some deeper insights and suggestions that you can implement on your own. Would that be of interest? I can pull together a few more thoughts based on my notes from today so that we can use the time efficiently. How about tomorrow at 9:15 a.m. Mountain? Let me send a calendar invite right now and you can confirm that it comes through. Would you like me to include anyone else?" If you do schedule an exploratory call, you need to follow up with a few tasks. First, promote the prospect's customer lifecycle stage to opportunity in the CRM. So we'll come into HubSpot, pull up our contact record, scroll down to lifecycle stage, and change it from SQL to opportunity. Then we need to create a deal. So we go up to Sales, click on Deals. We're going to create a deal. We'll say Acme Consulting. The deal stage is exploratory call scheduled. I'm going to skip some of these items. If you know the amount or have a gut feel for it, you can populate here. And if you have a feel for when this deal might close, you can choose that date here. We'll go down to Company, and I'm going to search for Acme. And we get this handy checkbox that allows us to add timeline activity, so things that have been going on at Acme to this deal. That's typically handy because we can see things like emails and phone calls that are associated with that company on the deal record itself. Then I'm going to find Jack. And same thing, I can add timeline activity with Jack to the deal. I'm going to click on Create. And now we have our first deal created. Next, you want to send a follow-up email. You should recap the call, reference high-level notes, reiterate the next steps, and request clarification if you got anything wrong. Again, our key takeaways for this lesson are: Sales is a numbers game. Many calls may go nowhere, but the more calls you make, the more opportunities you'll generate. Practice makes perfect. I encourage you to call other members, call friends and family, and practice in your head. Be sure to listen to the sample call audio file in the lesson notes too. Keep it under 15 minutes. It doesn't really matter if the prospect is willing to give you an hour. You'll need to do additional work based on the few things you learn in the Connect call. So it's important that you stick to the structure. So make it customized and personal. Since there's no set script for the Connect call, focus on connecting with your prospect and finding the approach that works best for you. You can help everyone. There's no valid way to get rejected on a Connect call. You're not selling anything yet, and even if they have no budget, no desire, and no real need, you can continue to offer selfless suggestions on platforms, tactics, and referrals. Download and print the PDF Connect Call Playbook and keep it next to you as you make your calls. There are plenty of details in this lesson, and the playbook reduces them down to a single checklist that you can follow in real time. And that's it for this lesson and this section. For those leads who progress to the next step, you'll be transitioning from the warm call sequence to the opportunity sequence, the final step in acquiring new customers. When you're ready, I'll see you in the next lesson.